Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of the Suited Shootist. Happy New Year. I realized that I haven't truly touched on my EDC setup in a while. And so I figured why not kind of kick off 2024 with, going over what my preferred carry setup is, especially given that last week I was touching on sort of degrees of concealment. I thought this would kind of make a logical next step. If you follow either the channel or like my Instagram page, I've got a couple of different rigs depending on the circumstance. This is kind of the middle ground of it. It's not necessarily my optimal setup, but it's also not one of my sort of compromised setups where I'm having to account for various different, social, professional, or environmental factors. And as such, I figured that I would sort of put together, this is a basic uniform for me. It's a button-down shirt, dark wash denim, and depending on how casual or dressy I want to go with it is really just going to be dictated by the specific shirt that I'm wearing and like the shoes that I'm wearing. But this is a really good template for a wide variety of circumstances. And let's just kind of go top down because I'm not talking exclusively about just guns here. And really, one of the first things is a good pair of sunglasses. I did a little snippet video. It's one of those things that gun guys are extremely guilty of, is they're always wearing their, eye pro, basically, even just out in the world. And if you are actually engaged in athletic activity, then sports sunglasses obviously make a lot of sense. But for everything else, you should go ahead and get yourself a grown-up pair of sunglasses. I am personally a fan of the Persol 714s. Number one, they've got this neat little party trick of being able to fold up like that. But it's also because I'm a bit of a Steve McQueen fanboy. And these were what he wore in the Thomas Crown affair. If you're going to get a pair of sunglasses, it's worth spending some money on them, and you want to get something that is going to fit and flatter your face shape. Some people are suited with something that is a bit more rounded. Some people are suited with something that is a bit more structured. Doesn't necessarily have to be a luxury brand because, frankly, most of them are grossly overpriced for what you're getting. But I would encourage you to deviate away from just the Range Eye Pro and get yourself a good pair of sunglasses. They can also be a good style staple and kind of become part of your signature. I know these have been for me. When it comes to other menswear accessories, I'm also a bit of a watch geek, so I've got quite a few. Depending on what I'm doing, this 4Share homage to the Milsub is one that frequently finds its way onto my wrist, but I've got a few others as well. Again, depending on how casual, how dressy, or what I may be doing. This I actually wear to like the range if I'm going to be beating on it and doing, hard use kind of stuff because it's built for that. Now, kind of moving down into the pockets, I try and keep my pockets really as unencumbered as possible. I try and sort of keep things fairly minimalist. Speaking of minimalist, my wallet is courtesy of Leather Endeavors. Devin is a buddy of mine, and he just made this little minimalist pocket wallet. It's got 2 sets of card slots. One side, I've got my ID, my carry permit, my health insurance stuff. The other side, I've got several credit cards and a $100 bill. Why a $100 bill? Well, interestingly enough, I was actually talking with Brian Eastridge about this, and the FBI, as part of their uniform requirements, field agents were required to carry a $100 bill on them, and this was part of their uniform that was even subject to inspection. There's a lot of circumstances where you just might find yourself in need of some cash and an ATM isn't available or something to that effect. A good example that I can remember is when I drove down to Texas, when I actually moved down here, it was right after a hurricane, and there were stretches of I-10 where the gas stations were open and doing business, but their credit card readers were down. So if you didn't have cash to pay for gasoline, you were SOL. It's always good to have a little bit of cash on you. Moving over into the other pocket. This is kind of the last of the admin gear. I've got my keys. Again, I try and keep this as low profile as possible, so I actually keep them kind of separated. House key, mailbox key, and a small thumb drive on one of these Key Smarts. I'm actually a big fan of these. They're in my Amazon store. It helps keep things just a little bit tidier and a little less bulky. So big fan. And then aside from that, I've got my key fob on a Trunk Monkey Designs Blue Paisley Suited Shootist Edition. Key fob's pull tab there, and then my long discontinued Shivworks Top Pop bottle opener. These are very handy in the event of needing to rapidly pop a top. So that's the boring gear. Let's get into why people are here. We want to talk about guns and weapons and all this other cool shit. The first one I'm going to talk about is one that I don't really carry for anti-personnel purposes, but I do think that every gentleman should carry a knife. Now, this is just a little Crew pocket knife that I picked up, little, just slip joint piece. It's a beautiful knife. I don't think that the camera is really going to pick up the detail of the wood inlay, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And I think there is some merit to having a more civilized cutting tool on hand, unless you're working a farm or you actually have heavy duty cutting tasks that you're doing on a regular basis. Once we've gone through all that, this is my actual EDC in terms of defensive tools. The one that is always with me is going to be a can of Palm OC. Whether I'm carrying a firearm or not, this is with me. It can go a lot of places that firearms can't, and it can come into the equation a whole lot sooner than firearms can. To steal a line from the late, great Paul Gomez, says, people tend not to get violent enough fast enough. And really what he meant by that, at least based on the conversations that I've had with people that knew him considerably better than I did, is that a lot of civilian defenders would find themselves in deadly force encounters because they didn't have the wherewithal or the presence of mind to interdict that assault earlier on in the process. And Chuck Haggart also talks about this in his pepper spray classes, but there's a lot of defensive encounters that very easily could have potentially been de-escalated purely with this, and been a whole lot less newsworthy because of it. So less lethal pepper spray is always with me. In the event that I'm carrying a light, I don't always, but if I do, honestly, the go-to these days has become the Surefire Stiletto Pro with a retention ring on it. Form factor on this is really the main decider. There's not a sharp edge on this thing. Everything is very well beveled, and it is just flat and unobtrusive. So even in my suit pants, I can get away with this without it really being an imposition. If I don't want to have it taking up space in a pocket, it is slim enough that I can simply tuck it inside my waistband on my offside as well. So there's a lot of advantages to this. There are plenty of people that will argue whether or not the lumen/candela output is sufficient. If it gets me killed in the streets, I'll let you know. The other piece that I talk about is medical. Now, my preferred, typically, especially if I'm wearing pants, which is most of the time, I go with an ankle medical kit. Either this one from Filster or this one from Frog Pro. They are both well constructed. They don't really have more than you need, and I like the fact that it is not the same material front and back. The insides on both of them are a little bit grippy, so they tend to stay put, which is kind of a big deal for me. Ankle medical kit, and it is typically going to be a tourniquet, a pressure bandage, and some hemostatic gauze are going to be the components that I'll have in there. I see these folks where, they've got these big honking, and they're trying to cram an entire IFAK onto their ankle. And if you want to wear, boot cut jeans all the time, cool, rock on. But that is not my aesthetic. When it comes to belts, Anson belt and buckle is my current go-to. I have switched over to them from slide belt, mostly because I prefer the profile of the buckle. And, honestly, the leather that they're using seems to be of just a slightly higher quality. I will say I'm looking at some of the options over at Next Belt as well, because they seem to have a slightly broader range of color options. But Anson, I think, strikes a great balance of just looking like a normal leather belt, and especially when you're running the Filster Enigma like I am, your belt doesn't really need to do anything other than sort of support your pants. But here's the other part. Realistically, your pants should fit well enough that you really shouldn't need a belt to hold them up. So something to keep in mind there. When it comes to the jeans, these are the Duluth Double Flex Ballroom. They're good for kind of an everyday jean. There's a couple of things about them that I'm not super wild about, but they're definitely nitpicky. They keep them from being like a dress option for me, but definitely as just a casual, good-looking dark wash denim, fantastic option. Twillery and Origin are also some fantastic denim to look at as well. Now, again, let's get to why everybody's here. We want to talk about guns. So, again, this is my standard configuration these days, and it is going to be a deep carried SIG 365X, currently with a Swamp Fox Sentinel on it, and I am running that in the Filster Enigma with my signature Darkstar Gear blue paisley holster. This one, for the purposes of this video, I just took the leg leash off so that way I didn't have to completely undress to take it off. But yeah, all three of my main EDC pistols are running on Enigmas these days, and generally if I'm running a tucked in shirt, it's that deep carry configuration because I found it to be a little bit faster than having to dig the gun out from under the tucked in shirt. It's my preference. Depending on specifically what I'm wearing, it's either going to be this or my LCR-J frame, because while this bore sight texture is fantastic for shooting the gun, it can be a little abusive on my nice clothing, and I'd really rather not chew up a $300 shirt just to have a gun on me. So that is kind of what we are looking at when it comes to the EDC. I'm able to carry all of this in anything from my most casual, pants and shirt, all the way up to in a tuxedo. It's probably the most versatile configuration I've got, and the reality of it is for my purposes, all this checks the boxes for me. So I'd be curious to hear how you folks choose to integrate the tools into your wardrobe, because a lot of folks still are of that dress around the gun mindset, which I'm not a big fan of, as we all know. And so, do you compromise how you dress, or have you found a truly versatile loadout that works across a wide range of different outfits? Let me hear that down in the comments. And so, hope everybody had a fantastic New Year's. Have a fantastic week. Stay dangerous and stay sharp.